Hi everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni, and I have a basket of scraps from this Chit Chat Angel Journal that I've been working on, and so I thought I would make some Frankenpaper. And I'm not sure if this is going to be a tutorial or if it's going to be a craft with me or a craft table talk. We'll just see what happens with it. But I thought I may as well turn on the camera. I have several videos where I make Frankenpaper because it's one of my favorite things to do. But you know, they end up, you know, getting buried and stuff, and so because I think that this is a very, very useful thing to do, I want to go ahead and make another one so that I can hopefully inspire you all to use your scraps. Okay, so what we are doing is we're just taking a piece of scratch paper. This is one that got some stuff printed on it, you know, but I'm not going to use it, obviously. So I can go ahead and put stuff over it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by doing my edges. I start with the biggest pieces that I have. Not pieces like this because I'm going to tear this. I don't want all this white stuff showing. But I start with some of the bigger pieces that I have to just kind of cover the paper to begin with. Like, see, here are some nice big pieces. So we're going to use those first. I'm not going to worry about cutting off these edges that aren't printed. They will go inside on the paper so that they'll be covered up, and so I just don't worry about that. I don't sew along the edge at first because I'm going to go through at the very end and sew all the way around the edge, so I don't want to do that right now. And also, see, there's some print there, so I'm going to make that just a little scrap that I can use later. And it was starting to go up too high anyway. So also, if you want to, you can do, you know, like your vintage photo. You can ink your edges if you want, but I wouldn't ink the edges at first because you can do that after you finish the whole thing and just ink it all at once. I have gotten so that I don't ink all the individual pieces either. I used to, but it takes a lot of time because you're going to have tons of little tiny pieces. I'm going to zigzag just because I like showing more stitching on it. You can stitch right down the middle of the paper if you want, or you can stitch on one of the other edges. I just wouldn't stitch along the edge because you're going to stitch along there at the end. So see, you can see how I've stitched here. That makes it possible so that if I want to, I can tear this edge off and I can stick something underneath it. Okay, or I can still stick something on top of it. If I sew along the edge here, then I definitely have to stick something on top of it. There's no option for putting anything underneath. Okay, and then I'm going to go along here with this. Oops, I want to cut off that little bit of white part there. I can stick that in my scrap box. Take off the white edge there. And I'm going to go ahead and add this piece along here to it. It takes a while to make Frankenpaper, to be honest, but it's a lot of fun. I'm going to pull this a little bit closer. What can you guys see? Yeah, you can see it. Okay, good. It's a lot of fun. And you just kind of develop your own style. I've noticed watching other people doing Frankenpaper that we all kind of do it differently, which is really neat, I think. Okay, and so I'm going to do some more of this along here. Okay, I've got too much stuff on my desk. I'm starting to knock over blending tools and stuff. I should have cleaned off my table before starting, but that's okay. Now I don't want to do it right over by the edge, but I'm going to do it along here. Give myself the option of being able to tuck things under if I want to tear some of that off. Okay, and then this has a white edge here, so I'm going to make sure that I cover that. Okay, I've got a nice long edge here, so I think I'll use that on the other side, right along here. And much of this will get covered. Now, you don't have to cover it. Some people use squares and rectangles. I use just like all kinds of miscellaneous shapes. But some people like it to look more like, you know, like patchwork quilt. And so they use squares and rectangles and strips. We can sew fast for this. My machine cuts my thread for me, but it leaves it, you know, some of it hanging off right there, you can see. And I like to do that. I like to have those hanging all over the inside. I think I'm going to use one of these cards along here. Those are pretty cool. You don't have to sew down the whole thing. You're basically, what you're doing at this point is just basting all these pieces of paper in place, and then you're going to go back and a little bit later on you can make it more perfect. I think I'll do that one up in the corner. I don't usually go for a square corner, but we've got it, so let's use it. When you've got it, flaunt it. Okay, and then how about some music on the silvery wave? But I don't want to waste it, so I'm going to tear it off right here. Okay, and again, you know, it's not an exact science. It's just, at least not the way that I do it. It's not an exact science. I'm just haphazardly putting it on there. I want to cover the whole sheet first with the larger pieces, and then we'll start adding smaller pieces as we go. Okay, what else do we have that's big? Ooh, we've got this. That's kind of cool. Do I need some more on the edge? Use this right here. There we go. I'm going to shove that underneath that card. I really like that Acme card. Oh, the other thing is I try not to just work all the way around the edge straight around, because then you've got, like, you know, a piece overlapping this and a piece overlapping this and a piece overlapping this, and it looks kind of funny. You want it to look a little bit more haphazard. Okay, so we still need something right here, here, and that's it. Okay, so how about some of this alphabet stuff here? That would be cool. There we go. Okay, so let's do this. I think we'll do it that way. And it doesn't matter, you don't want to necessarily have the edge all perfectly straight. If you do like it straight, then you can always cut it after you're done creating the paper. So what do I use Frankenpaper for? I make it in sheets like this. Sometimes I make it in long strips or rolls, but generally I make it in sheets. And then what I do is, someday I'm going to use a sheet for a cover. I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet because I usually have fabric that I want to use. But you could use it for a cover. It's just the right size and it's nice and thick, so it'd be great for a cover. I use it for, I cut it up into belly bands and pockets and cards. So you can cut it up. You don't have to keep it all whole like this or create it in the shape that you're going to use it in eventually. You can have it, you can, I want a smaller piece right there because it's going to be a little bit different. You can cut it up, and one of the nice things about doing that is that if you create it, like as I'm creating a junk journal, I save all the little scraps in one basket for that particular junk journal, and that way I have pieces that are going to coordinate with that junk journal. Okay, so these are all from the Chit Chat Angel Junk Journal. I'll probably use it to make some cards, some journaling cards with it, because I've already pretty much filled up the journal itself. Okay, so now we're going to start filling in the inside. And I want to cover up these white edges. I've already got some writing there, so let's not use it there. Let's use it right here. That'd be good. So I cut it. I use it to cut up to make things. But the beauty of it is because you're using scraps from what you've already used in the journal, it's going to coordinate really nicely with your journal. And so, you know, so that's a really cool thing about it. The other thing that's really neat is that, you know, you've got a, what would you call it? You've got a color scheme, you know, because you're using all these things that coordinate, that go together in a journal. And what I've found is that I notice that different journal artists tend to use like 2 or 3 different color schemes all the time. And I know that that's true of me too. And so even if I don't use all the Frankenpaper from this journal in this journal, I'll be able to use it someplace else because I'll use that color scheme again, I'm sure. So you can never make too much of it, I don't think. Also, I make it and I put it in my shop. So for those of you who go, oh, that's really cool, but I don't really want to make my own, that doesn't appeal to me, I have quite a bit of it in my shop, and I'll just keep adding. And if you want Frankenpaper and you want it in a particular color scheme, feel free to ask me to make it, because I probably have paper that I've printed that I need to make into Frankenpaper for one reason or another. It's, besides your scraps, it's also a really great way to use misprints, things that just haven't printed out well. And so I like to do that. And so yeah, if you have a particular color scheme that you want some Frankenpaper in, let me know. I would be happy to make some for you. I think it's really relaxing. I enjoy doing it, but I can understand why some people really would not enjoy making it themselves, and I'm happy to do it for you. All right, so now I'm getting to some of the other pieces, the smaller pieces that are in there, and I'm just gluing them. At this point, they're all going like this way or this way, but as I start getting this covered and I start adding other pieces to it, you'll see that I won't have, these pieces are more like rectangular shaped, even if they're like not exactly straight or anything, they still have kind of that general shape. And when I add some more pieces to it, it's not going to be that way. Okay, I like that. So I'm going to add this to the edge. See, now I've already got this on the edge, but I don't want to have that big of a piece that's all the same. So I'm going to add this in. I like that. And the stitching will look really cool on it. You know, you're not trying to hide the stitching. Sometimes I actually use something that's more of a contrasting color so that the stitching can be seen better. Okay, so here's a misprinted picture, and I'll use the scraps from this. I'm just, for now, wanting to get part of the picture here. I'm just going to put that like right in the middle. I'm going to turn it at an angle too. And I'm just going to sew it right down the center. There we go. See, and since I sewed it down the center, if I want to tuck other things under it, I can. Or I can still put things on top of it too. I've got that. I've just got the option. I've left it open for myself. Here's our little angel girl. We've got to have her someplace on here, right? So let's just do her right here. As I start getting smaller pieces in a little while, I'll start going around the edges more. But for now, I'm still just trying to cover up all the white. So I'm just going down the center of these, especially if it's something that I like, that I think I'm going to want to allow it to show more later. Okay. Oh, here's a little piece that's gotten put on here. So this one I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go over one side. I'm going to sew it down. Okay. I've still got a white space here that we need to cover up. So why don't we use some of this? Okay, and see how I've got that white edge? I'll have to cover that with something else, so that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew on that edge, since I'll definitely want to cover it. There we go. So now I just start looking through my basket for pieces that are, you know, still fairly big, but not necessarily huge. Most of what I've got in here is brown, but I do have some pink, and I'm kind of saving that to go on top of the brown stuff. Okay, so I've got a piece with print, with writing, so I don't want to put that where I've got other writing. So let's go ahead and we'll put it right here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it at an angle. And I'm going to sew along this edge because I think I'll probably leave that edge. And let's go ahead and sew along this edge as well. So we're starting to get things in place so it's a little bit more permanent. We're sewing them down. I want to have smaller pieces of these letters. So let's go ahead and put some of these guys in here. Okay, so see how I've shoved this underneath this one? I'm going to go ahead and sew around the edge right here of this, just on this side. Okay, so that's holding, it's holding this paper in place, but it's not held down completely. And let's do some more of this alphabet here. Maybe over here. I'm kind of hoping not to cover up those faces there. Let's see. Let's bring it out over this one. There we go. Like that. And I think I'll sew across the edge of that darker one. It gets a little awkward in your machine at some points because you're having to sew like over here. You can just kind of roll your paper under to fit underneath the arm. And how about some of this over here? Like that. That's good. So I'm going to sew along this edge and sew this down. You want to eventually, when you're finished, you're going to want to have all your edges sewn down, because if they aren't, you know, they'll catch on things and it'll tear and pull them up. So at this point, we're starting to sew some of the edges as well. I think I like that, those big letters on top of this print here. So I'm going to sew, and see how I'm just kind of haphazardly putting these on. I still have a blank area right here, don't I, that I need to fill. I'm going to sew all the way around this one. I probably will put something on top of part of it because it's kind of a big piece. And I don't like to have pieces that are that big showing completely. But I can start getting them put down. Alright, so we need something to go right here. Oh, here's something that's a little bit different color. This is different from what we've been using. Where's my blank spot? Right there. Okay, so I think I'm going to stick this with the edge underneath that picture of the girl there. I want it to be at an angle a little bit, so it's going to be like that. And I'm going to sew all the way around this piece. I forgot to look and see when I started. If this cuts off in the middle, I will continue on another piece that you can see how I finish it off, but I think you can probably pretty much get the idea from this. How much time have we had? It looks like it's about 18 minutes. So we could do about 10 more minutes. Okay, so till 6:15. All right, so now I'm going to start adding some pieces of pink to it. I don't want that white on the edge because now I'm getting to smaller pieces. I want to add some color in here. I don't like this blank space here, all that blank space. I'm going to cover that up a little bit with some of this pink. I want it to be a little bit more colorful. If you used this as a cover, there's a couple ways that you could do it. You could just leave it as is. Make sure though that you have all your edges sewn down really, really well. Because you know the cover is what's going to get the most wear and tear. It's going to get bumped against and everything. And you don't want those pieces coming loose. The other thing you could do is you could decoupage over it. And that's kind of what I've thought that I would do if I use this as a cover sometime. Okay, so do I want, I think I want this part that has the writing on it. This is from a hymn that I used as a pocket or something. Okay. And when I first put it down, it was like parallel to this picture. I don't want that, so I'm turning it some. Okay, and then I'm going to sew down all the edges all the way around it. And what I'm trying to do now is break up all those big pieces that I sewed on originally, break them up with smaller pieces. The big pieces are kind of my background, although I do want some of them showing through, parts of them showing through. Okay. So I'm going to do that one right there. So it's fun. To me, it's kind of a relaxing thing. You don't want to think too much as you're doing it about what you're doing, because it needs to be kind of random. And if you've saved pieces from one journal in a basket or a tub or something, or a drawer, I have drawers that I also store them in, small drawers like about that big, that I have on my desk. If you've saved all the pieces from one journal together, then it's all going to coordinate, you know, so it doesn't, you really don't have to think about it. You don't have to go, oh, does this color look good with it? You already know that it does because you used it all in a journal. So it's really nice how it turns out. When I cut these up and I make them into cards, and I think that I have a video where I've done that. Not sure if I've posted it yet. Making them into cards. Okay, so I'm going to sew around this piece as well. When I do that, then I usually end up adding, besides like a ribbon for tab or something, or maybe even lace at the bottom, I will usually end up adding something like a butterfly or some other motif to the top, just to give it kind of a focal point. Not to the top, but, you know, someplace on it, to give it kind of a focal point. And I found that that really works well. Now, if this angel ended up in the center or in a really good place on a journaling card, I probably wouldn't add something to it. The other thing you can do is when you make these into journaling cards, you can stamp on them. And your darker stamp is going to give you a focal point on the front of the card that way. That's kind of neat. Okay, so let's see we need a few more small pieces. After we get our small pieces on, then we'll start adding things like fabric and lace and stuff. I really like doing that. Let's see here. What do we have? We've got some pink paper here. That's okay. I like this. That's all like kind of munched up. That's really cool. And some of these pieces that have some writing on them. Those are really cool too. Oh, and these are from punching out the edges of stuff. That's kind of neat. All right. So where are we time-wise? Because I forgot how many. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop. This is a good place to stop. And I'm going to start up another video that I may post today or I may post tomorrow. All right. I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.